Before getting to the video proper, a moment for administrative stuff, because there should have been a Divine Dream devlog last week, and I think by now 2 .NET Hack devlogs since the last one as well. So clearly this system isn't working by itself, which is why I'll be trying a new thing. I've created a channel on the Discord server dedicated to my projects, where anyone at any point can request an update about any of them. This way these videos will serve as a more complete list of updates and game design logic behind them, while there is still a way for you to get some information even if they are delayed for one reason or another. And perhaps the prospect of unpredictable supervision will also increase my efficiency. But let's get back to the topic. If I wasn't trying to avoid editing at all costs, I would put some kind of magic show animation here, because for my first trick I have cut this mod in two. Or, in other words, I have ripped out the internals of Shogun Showdown extras, leaving behind only the actual content, putting the rest of it into a separate mod. And why would I do that? Because adding a new tile or skill takes a fair bit of setup, and if I will have multiple mods adding these things, it won't make much sense to include that setup in every mod separately. And the same goes for if anyone else will be interested in making their own content mods. A universal content loader will make everyone's lives easier. There isn't much else to talk about for the content loader itself. Making it was a matter of taking the mechanisms that made content work and modifying them so that they could accept multiple sets of content at the same time. Though getting it to actually work was a lengthy process of building the mod, opening the game, seeing that there was an error when loading, opening the logs, checking how far it got, tracking down whatever type or type mismatch caused the issue, and repeating the process until at long last all the lights in the mod loader's menu were green. But of course that didn't mean the mod actually worked, don't be ridiculous now. The localization table wasn't loading in, and the skills archive, despite seemingly creating entries for all of them, apparently believed that there were 0 skills unlocked out of 0 skills in the game, and it was clearly caused by the initializing function throwing an error, since it also prevented the skull cost from archive banning from showing up. And I have absolutely no idea what the tiles pages issue was. Tackling these one by one, the translation problem was caused by 2 very similar functions of a dictionary for some reason behaving completely differently, and the issue with skills was that I didn't adjust the archive bans mod to look for extra skills in the content loader instead of the extras mod. I have no idea why I didn't preemptively address that issue. I knew that it was something that needed doing. I had it written down on my list of tasks, and yet I didn't immediately realize that it was the source of the problem. And the tiles just fixed themselves at some point, I'm not going to complain about that. But all of that was just setup, a small bonus. The main attraction is a proper content pack. Several people called the Extras mod something like an unofficial expansion, but I don't think it deserves that title. This one, however, will. And its main star will be the Gambler, a fully custom hero. I have experimented with his mechanics in Extras already, now was the time to implement him properly. Starting with some work on refining the idle animation, by the way huge thanks to Aiki for making these Gambler sprites and letting me use them. And this is the result. I have several ideas on how it might be improved, but this is what I've got so far, and I think it's good enough. And because each time I shared it I got the same reaction, I'm going to guess that you're questioning the decision to make him shake his arms like this, but once I say that it's meant to resemble shaking a handful of dice, you'll probably be able to see it. Next came figuring out what needs to be done for the game to accept a new hero. Things like bundling all the sprites, animations and animator controllers into the mod, creating a script for the hero and one for his special move. Then a brief detour saw me copying the swap tile from extras into the Gambler pack, because it's part of Gambler's main deck, and it was an opportunity to see if the content loader can actually handle getting content from more than one mod at a time, and if anything explodes if the 2 mods are trying to add the same tile. The answers were yes, and yes, but it's easy to fix respectively. Afterwards I had to figure out what needs to be placed where to add a new hero to character selection, but in the middle of that I took another detour, because Aiki made an animation for the Shinobi Axe tile I made last time, so I implemented that into the game first, making for another type of animation that I now know how to implement. And then it looked like the main part of adding a new hero worked, until I tried going into the camp with him selected to find that he wasn't there. And the worst part was, whatever was failing was doing so without throwing an error, so tracking it down meant basically blindly guessing and hoping for the best. The issue, for some reason, turned out to be that the Gambler wasn't unlocked properly, because you have to unlock a new hero in 2 separate places for them to work. And also something wasn't right with the default sprite, which kinda made the Gambler look like he can teleport. And that was easy enough to fix, except no, it wasn't, because for some reason, if you change the character to a different one, then back to the Gambler, his default sprite returns to using the Wanderer sprite. And yes, the way I'm making custom heroes work is that I make a copy of the Wanderer once the game starts, and replace all the relevant elements until I get a completely different hero. That aside, the reason for this issue was that the hero selection menu wanted a copy of the hero, rather than a new instance, though why that caused the issues I had no idea at the time. By now I know at least that it's partially because you can't swap a sprite in the middle of a sprite swapping animation, and the method I used to pause the animations to account for that apparently just didn't work. And next part of the script I will read as I wrote it down in my initial notes, but it's still not perfect because the special move cooldown display is broken, and it might be because it initializes itself without clearing the marks it already had from the previous special move. And yeah, I was going to complain about this, but literally as I was making a note for the script, I realized the issue. Rubber duck debugging once more proves effective. And immediately afterwards, I stopped taking these notes for a while. During that time I finished the Gambler, including giving 5 bosses unique barks they can give when you encounter them as that hero. And by extension I set everything in place for the content loader to accept custom heroes. There were 2 big challenges remaining in the development of this content pack, but I decided that I needed a break and started working on a pair of new tiles that this pack would also add. One of them would be Shuffle, Gambler's special move made available in the tile form, to keep up with every special move having a tile equivalent. And as a special move, Shuffle has the unique niche of affecting up to 3 enemies at once, being rather underwhelming to begin with, but scaling exceptionally well with skills. I wanted it to maintain this niche as a tile, so it starts with 0 damage, which is notable in comparison to something like Swap Toss, which is completely incapable of dealing damage. This one can do it, and even a 0 damage hit can break a shield and apply an enchantment effect, and you can of course increase this damage through skills and tile upgrades. It's possible that it would work better dealing damage to begin with, at the cost of higher initial cooldown, but that is one of those things that will come out in testing. Except I don't have the time to do dedicated testing myself, meaning I'll probably only change it if it turns out after the mod's release that people think it's too weak. The second move should of course also fit the gambling theme somehow, yet still be useful in this tactical game where you really need to know what an attack is going to do before you use it. That logic led me to Chance Strike, an attack that hits a single random enemy on the field. It's an attack that might not always do exactly what you want, but also always does something, and because it will always deal its damage, you can make it more reliable by reducing the number of targets it can pick from. If there is only 1 enemy left, it in fact becomes perfectly predictable, and if you just add it at the end of an attack queue, chances are it will extend your combo. I also took a look at the gambling tile suggestion that Eiki made in my Discord server, though I ultimately decided against adding it for a couple of reasons. The first one was that it was just a worse spear, dealing the same damage but being unreliable in its targeting, but that could be fixed with a rebalance. The bigger issue was that it did not fit with my personal design philosophy regarding tiles. That is, that they should be, much like the vanilla ones, either weapons, techniques, or mystical abilities. And while magic is a very wide term, narrowing it to mystical is a big, if rather vague limitation, that ultimately excludes something like attacking through some interpretation of a card game. Another factor is my view of randomness in this game, which I alluded to with Chance Strike. Randomness is of course present, this is a roguelike after all, and it determines things like the way enemies spawn, the items they drop, the rewards you obtain, shops that appear, and some of the combo skill effects. But crucially, the core of the game is deterministic. You know exactly what is going to happen when you execute the tiles you prepared, and you know exactly what the enemies are going to do next turn. You can of course be wrong because you overlooked something, but that's not exactly the game's fault. Still, there should never be a situation where you expect the tile to do something, and it just doesn't do it purely because you got unlucky. Crucially though, It is acceptable for them to do more than expected, as seen with the skills like combo curse and combo freeze. And that line of thinking led me to coming up with one more tile. The most basic idea for a gambling tile is, after all, to make it deal random damage. But as mentioned before, if you can't rely on a tile to do what you expect it to do, it's not a fun tile to use. The solution I came up with? Place the randomness in a place where the player can react to it. In this case, for each turn of being queued up, this tile will randomize its damage value. So you can decide whether to use it or keep gambling for a stronger hit. Working in a similar way to Blade of Patience, just less predictable and never settling into an optimal value. What I struggled to decide on was its range. I didn't want it to be yet another tile that strikes the cell directly ahead, there's enough of those already. But if not that, then what? One cell further, like Shadow Kama, directly behind? An idea finally struck me while I was pondering another issue, that of presentation. Why would the damage of this attack be random? Is it because you are going for vital organs but deal much less damage if you don't hit them? And should it be a weapon, a mystical ability, or a martial arts technique? And martial arts was the answer. Specifically the whole concept of drunken fighting styles, of relying on your movement being unpredictable. So the targeting should be like that too. Therefore, each time the damage is randomized, so is the targeting. You may hit the tile directly in front of you, directly behind you, or both. Though that comes back to the issue I had with Eiki's idea, making this tile a less reliable version of an existing one, in this case Swirl. To address that, I decided to add two more potential methods of targeting: moving forward then striking the cell ahead, and moving backwards then striking the cell behind. And then I removed the ones that just strike the cells directly ahead and behind, because A, they were just worse versions of the new ones, and B, I didn't know how to indicate them. Because random damage is easy to depict, just change the damage number as needed. The targeting is more tricky, though I eventually decided on making it Swirl but for Dragon Punch. Since it's already an established visual language in Shogun Showdown, that pointing up means attacking forward, pointing down means attacking backwards. Then I created two variants indicating the single direction attack, the implementation of which was an additional challenge but not that hard in the end, though I haven't yet gotten a chance to test it with enchantments. And I already had to nerf it after it utterly decimated Corrupted Ray, because originally the damage was a simple random number between 1 and 9, so you had 1 in 8 or 12.5% chance of getting 9 every turn. I changed it to be randomized based on power. To explain how it works, one way to generate a random number in an arbitrary range, for the sake of example let's say between 2 and 7, would be to start by getting the difference between these extreme values, in this case it's 5. Then we get a random number between 0 and 1, fractions included of course, multiply it by that difference, add the minimum value and floor the result, that is rounded down. You might notice that this can give us a 2, but will never give us a 7, so the minimum value is inclusive, maximum is exclusive. And you have the exact same chance of getting each number being 20%. But now let's see what happens if before multiplying the random number, we square it. Previously, if we got 0.25 on the random roll, that would get multiplied to 1.25, increased to 3.25, and finally rounded down to 3. But squaring a number that is less than 1 will reduce it. Squaring 0.25 will give us 0.0625, so after doing the rest of the math, we'll end up with 2.25, rounding down to 2. Meaning that this method makes lower numbers more likely to appear, and by extension, big numbers less likely. Specifically, in this example, we would end up with roughly 45% chance to get a 2, 18% chance for a 3, 14% for a 4, 12% for a 5, and 11% for a 6. So I've done the same for the Drunken Fist damage, just in the case of 1 to 10, resulting in a number from 1 to 9, plus the base damage of the tile. And I'm considering going a step further with putting limitations on this tile, specifically making it so the movement it causes is considered to be knockback, just like the movement from the gun tile. Meaning that if the Drunken Fist is going to attack forward, you can only use it safely to attack an enemy one cell away. You can still use it against an enemy directly in front of you, but you will crash into them first, both of you taking collision damage before the actual attack happens. After tiles came new skills, and more specifically a whole new category of gambling skills, that I wanted to try and implement alongside the new shop type. My aim was 10 skills, since each vanilla skill type that has a shop gets 4 skills unlocked immediately, plus 4 unlockable skills, and then I added 2 more of each type with the extras mod. I decided to do the logical thing and start by implementing the 4 skills which would be unlocked from the start, then the shop, then the rest of them. And the 4 skills I decided to start with are Triple or Nothing, suggested by Apocalypse, which when obtained either gives you 3 random skills or takes a random skill away, with an added limitation that it cannot give you other gambling skills because some of them could ruin your run if you weren't ready to obtain them. Blood Game, suggested by Aiki, which gives you a chance to obtain the die consumable each time you get hit. I particularly like how this one encourages gambling with your health, because if you have healing potions, you can use them up, meaning that you won't be able to sell them for their doubled value compared to other consumables, but you might get a shop reroll instead, which is of course more valuable if you have more money than you know what to do with. The third one is Head Start. That one is my own idea, which makes all the tiles you obtain in the future start with a random upgrade. And finally, a skill of a special subtype, the Obliteration Bet. Bets will be a type of skill which either puts a restriction on you and gives you a reward for surviving until the next shop, or gives you a challenge to complete, rewarding you if you succeed. The Obliteration Bet is more of the latter, as if you manage to obliterate a region, that is clear it without getting hit once, it upgrades a random of your tiles to be free play without increasing its cooldown or taking up an upgrade slot. Or at least that was the original idea, but according to Apocalypse it's not the greatest option, and I'm going to trust a speedrunner on that. Especially since I immediately came up with a more logical reward, that is simply giving the player money. It is a bet after all, so why I didn't originally think of making it a spend money for an opportunity to earn more thing, I'll never know. Something to notice that while I'm not sure at the time, I believe I will have to modify the skill save data to make it possible to mark skills as spent, so that ones like Triple or Nothing don't trigger themselves each time you save and reload, and the bets cannot be triggered multiple times. Though going off script, I just realized that that might not be the case after all, because they should work the same way as the skill that gives you more max HP. So if there are any safeguards needed, I will find them there. But when I went to check if the skills were loading in properly, things went horribly wrong. The newly added skills were throwing errors, which normally wouldn't be a big deal, but when I went and blocked skills from being loaded in, which by all accounts was the source of the issue, and which I did because I wanted to address an older bug with Drunken Fist breaking the attack queue, I ran into a brand new bug, which seemed to happen without throwing a single error, and completely disabling the Gambler package just made things worse, throwing me into a Shadow Realm haunted by the ghost of the tutorial from what I can tell. Though that one thankfully had an identifiable cause and a clear solution, the content loader needs a fallback for when the player disabled the mod from which the currently selected hero originates, and I probably should also make it track which content mods were used in the current run, so you can't continue it if one of the mods is broken or disabled, since that would result in errors either way. But that second part could wait, because after addressing the first one, we're back to the Shadow Hero problem, which not only makes the hero a pitch black silhouette without the idle animation, but also makes the archive and the merchant believe I don't have anything unlocked, and throws an error when opening the hero selection. And it doesn't go away after disabling all the mods, which can only mean one thing. My save data got corrupted, and it believes I don't have anything unlocked, even the things unlocked by default. And yeah, wiping my save data clean fixed it, allowing me to experiment to find the cause of the data corruption, which turned out to be caused by me incorrectly setting up the 4 gambling skills to be unlocked immediately. I accidentally made that unlock happen before the game loaded in already existing unlocks, causing that process to fail. Once all that was dealt with and the skills were at least theoretically in place, it was actually fairly easy to implement the new shop. I'd go as far as saying that the shop itself is easier to implement than the skills sold in it. First, I tried implementing it without graphics, doing things step by step to make it easier to track down any issues that may occur. Then, when I added the graphics, I forgot to set the correct pivot, resulting in the shop being half buried in the ground and also having some really strange flickering, caused by the fact that it was trying to render itself in between pixels. Now you may notice that there is something missing from this picture, or rather someone. Every shop needs a merchant, and in this case this goal will be fulfilled by the original concept for the gambler, created by Apocalypse with my assistance. But I have something special planned for him, which is why he'll be spawned as a separate sprite, instead of being a part of the shop like everyone else's. There are also two things that still need to be set up that you can't see here, those being the spawning positions for potions and dialogue. But I've run out of time this week and it's already been way too long since my last devlog, so I stopped there. And still ended up being late because I'm writing this part of the script on Monday. In the future I will probably be uploading work in progress parts like this, as long as they are stable, but for that first one I wanted to make a good first impression. I still need to add the rest of the skills, tackle a whole new challenge of adding custom enchantments, and do a secret third thing. And solve whatever is the issue with Drunken Fist, which I'll have to track down again because all the evidence of it was lost when my save data got corrupted. And even once the pack itself is finished, I won't be quite ready for its release. One last thing I'll have to do is expand archive banning to allow for banning shops and upgrades, because I think that you should be able to keep as much of the vanilla experience as you want, while mixing in the modded content. So if you for instance want to play with the Gambler hero, but without the gambling skills and enchantments, you should be allowed to do that. Plus it will help going for specific builds, making achievement hunting less RNG dependent. And that's all I've got for this update. Subscribe if you want to hear me ramble about game design more. Take a look at the Discord server in the description if you're interested in giving any of my projects a try. And until next time, farewell.